I finally feel like my job as a homeschooling parent for my eldest is over. That chapter is well and truly closed. I thought about having a bottle of champagne to pop here in this moment, but I didn't have one here, and to be honest, I didn't want to go out and buy a bottle of champagne just for this. So let's just all pretend that we're all together in a big room popping a bottle of champagne together. This is a pretty momentous moment in any homeschooling family's career. And the reason for that, my eldest just received an early round offer for his degree of choice starting in 2022. You wanted to know how we got here? So this is our story. OMG. My eldest just got a text to say that he got an early round offer of his first preference for university next year. Oh my goodness. Oh. He decided earlier this year that he might try for university, and oh my goodness, the pressure of a homeschooling mum who's obviously done things outside of the box for the last 15 years, but who also hasn't homeschooled traditionally at all. We did it. Oh my goodness, we did it. We did it. We did it. We did it. You know the stupid thing about all this? I was only talking to my best friend about this on the weekend, and my fears and the level of anxiety that I have had worrying over this. I don't actually care whether he goes to university or not, but he got accepted. It's that validation that we're not messing this up. We are doing everything we can for our kids, and it'll work out. Anyway, I just had to let you know that. I'm gonna go console myself now. Bye. If you're new here, I'm Kylie, homeschooling mum to 3. We've been home educating since 2007. On this channel, I share all things homeschooling. Curriculum, resources, book flip-throughs, how-to advice, day in the life, hints, tips, any bits and pieces of information I have gleaned over my years of home educating. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I know as a homeschooling parent, I don't need that validation from some outside institution to pat me on the back and say, well done, you did a good enough job. I know that I don't need that. At least the rational part of me knows that I don't need that. There's always that little irrational voice sitting on our shoulder reminding us that yes, we do. But I'd be lying if I didn't say I felt a massive amount of relief and validation when that acceptance offer came through the other day. Truly, I would. So I've shared a little bit of this over on my Instagram stories, and a lot of you were very keen to hear the bigger picture. So this is just going to be me laying it out, the story of our path to get to the university acceptance offer. I guess to begin, I just want to give a little bit of background. Throughout my home educating years, I really very quickly came to realise that my children's happiness was of the utmost importance to me. Their happiness above anything else is what my sole focus has been on all of these years. That great old saying of connection over curriculum is what I've really tried to strive for throughout our home educating journey. And so having kids here, spending the bulk of their days with their noses in textbooks, barely leaving their room, having to do great assignments, tests, all of those manner of things that goes along with a regular type of schooling environment is something that I knew I didn't want for my children. I felt that if that was the place we were at, my kids might as well go to school. Because being here at home from 9 till 3, stuck in their bedrooms, not socialising, really wasn't going to be any better than being at school. I made this decision back in 2007 where I took this massive leap of faith to do something wildly different from what most people choose to do. And therefore I certainly wasn't going to come home and just replicate what they would have been doing at school. For me, that seemed utterly pointless. I want my kids to look back on their childhood as a time of as little stress as possible, as a time that was as carefree as it possibly could be for them. And I believe that's how every childhood should be. But somehow we've gotten to this place that school, and at least the upper years of high school, becomes all about stress. That's not what I wanted for my children. I do just want to quickly inject here though, that if you've chosen a different path for your family and your kids, I'm not saying that what you're doing is wrong. Please always remember that. I'm simply sharing my story, my feelings, and what I wanted for my children. Please don't ever think that I'm telling you what you're doing is wrong, because I truly believe in empowering each and every one of us to do what we feel is best for us and our kids here in our home. So I've checked with my son and he's completely okay with me sharing this story with you. Please bear in mind that I'm not going to give every single nitty-gritty detail. I do still want to protect his privacy and his feelings around all of this, but I will give you as much information as I possibly can. Firstly, I have to say, I spent many years fighting university as an option once my kids finished school. I struggled to get past the fact that university is just simply one huge big money making machine, and that for the vast majority of people I know in my circles didn't even actually use the degree that they paid good money for to go and do. And so I've really encouraged my children to think outside the box and not to look at university as this be all and end all and this magical place where all their dreams are going to come true. And I still don't believe that. 100%, I still don't believe that. However, more recently, over the years, as I've consumed more information and learnt more, I've come to soften a little bit on my thoughts and feelings around university, and I've come to realise that even obtaining an education for education's sake is not going to be in vain. I mean, imagine if every single human on the planet decided that we were no longer going to attend university. That's potentially a pretty stark way to look at our future if you listen to some of the big entrepreneurial voices out there in the world today. And not forgetting that, of course, there are many careers that absolutely need university degrees, and there are also many career choices where it's just going to be easier to get your foot in the door if you've got that little piece of paper. Like it or not, it's how the world rolls. And so this is why I always say, and I have a recent video I'll try and link for you where I mentioned this, we need to be really careful as parents to not be projecting our internal bias onto our children. Because I know when it came to university, that's definitely something that I have done. And for many years, he had no interest in university at all. Now granted, I don't know if that's because of me or whether it's just something that he had decided on himself and he felt he just wanted to get out and experience the world for what it is. But again, it's one of those reflection times where I look back and go, that was a big bias moment, Kylie. You probably need to be keeping a lot of those thoughts to yourself. So his junior high school years, so remember if you're watching from anywhere outside of Australia, high school for us now starts in grade 7. So his junior high school years were pretty cruisy, as has been the bulk of our home education journey, where really for the most part we have stuck to our roughly 2 hours of formal educational work each day. I've also written this down because I don't want to miss any of the steps, and even though it's only over a few years, there's a lots of bits and pieces that I wanted to let you know. So I have written a lot of this down, so that's where I'm looking. If you see me looking down, I've just got all my notes.
So at around 15 years old, he was really very adamant that university wasn't in his pathway. Although at that time, he really had no idea what he was going to do. There was a period there just before that he did explore, and we went to a couple of university open days and he loved that. But that sort of backflipped relatively quickly and he made the decision that's not going to be my path. And that's fine. It was also around this time that he became very apathetic about maths and just said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this upper level algebra 2 and beyond mathematics. I don't see myself ever using this in the future. I've had enough. At 15, 16 years old, what can one do with that information? Basically, I sat down and talked to him about that because there was a little part of me on the inside that still truly believed that at some point he would end up going down a path where he would need this maths. But what can one do? When a teenager is adamant they don't want to do something, there is no point in pushing and forcing and making them do something that they're absolutely hating. By doing that, I most likely would have completely turned him off a path where he would have needed that mathematics anyway. So regardless, I'm completely defeating the purpose. I did, however, explain to him what would be needed if, in a few years down the track, he decided that possibly he might look at some type of engineering degree and that he would need those math skills. So there was the option of you either spend a few years now getting those skills at your own pace for free, or you'll possibly need to do some type of bridging course or pay at the university level to gain those skills that you may need when you do decide, if that day ever comes, to apply to university. We talked openly about it. He's always been a very level-headed, mature kid, and he made the decision that he was done with that level of maths. Okay, we were done with math. Move along to his 12th grade year, so his final year of school. Along with the little bit of work that I was setting for him, we were participating in co-op, so we had some homework from that. He also enrolled in a Cert 3 in Design Fundamentals, which is graphic design, basically a certificate in Photoshop. He was 17 at the time of enrolling, and so even though for us it was his final year of school, officially by the school board standards he was done. So we were able to enroll him in that course under what the government calls the Cert 3 guarantee. So it was a heavily funded Certificate 3 course for him, so that was fabulous. For that course, he had to jump on a train 1 day a week, head down the Gold Coast, walk to the college, manage his college days with lunches and getting there and getting home and assignments and all of those sorts of things. It was a really great entry point into study that was outside of the home and away from me. And having those Photoshop skills will never go astray either. During that same year, he also started to become really heavily involved in his karate dojo. He was really loving karate and excelling really quite well at it, and was starting to learn all the basics of instructing. And we'd also gone down the path of seeking out a qualification in karate instructing for him. So that was kind of where we thought he was probably heading. Around that time, he also undertook a couple of introductory fitness kickboxing instructor courses, and he actually started taking some classes in that and earning a little bit of an income. And then the pandemic hit. Pretty much his fitness and karate instructing journey died overnight. He was out of work for months and he really had no idea what he wanted to do. Thankfully, at the beginning of that year though, he had enrolled in a business diploma. So again, this was heading down the coast 1 day a week for a full day of study, and then all the assignment work that goes along with that at home. So that was something that kept him busy, kept him focused, and kept his learning happening. And thank goodness they managed to maintain that all the way through our lockdowns. I think they spent a whole term, if I remember rightly, at home just doing it via Zoom. But they managed to get through it and completed his business diploma before the end of last year. Again, I was able to seek out a private college, and the courses there were heavily funded, therefore keeping the cost of those right down, which was a real help. Sometime in the second half of that year, and I can't remember exactly what month it is, he was offered a short stint of casual work at a cabinet making factory. Up until this point, he had always said there was no way he would do anything like that, but he did take the work. And that work turned into pretty much a full-time job where he's been working 50 odd plus hours on average every single week since then. And having to roll out of bed at 4 a.m. to get to work on time. So he doesn't like the work. He loves that it's 5 minutes around the corner. He loves that he's home just after 3 p.m. He loves the camaraderie and all the fun of working in a nice big group environment like that over in the factory. And he's making fabulous money for someone of his age. What gets him all the time is the 4 a.m. that he needs to get out of bed. He absolutely detests the fact that he has to be up at 4 a.m. 5 and sometimes 6 days a week. And don't get me wrong, he's managed it completely fine. I don't get up with him. It's all his lunch and everything's ready to go. He's out the door and he's at work, and he's managed it with grace and humility, and he's managed this really very well, and it's been a great experience for him. I believe that we all need to go through a period where we all need to work a little bit hard to appreciate what we do have in life. So I'm thankful for that, and we've had lots of conversations about how great of an experience for those reasons this has been for him. So there was talk of possibly an apprenticeship, so he did have to spend some time weighing that up. I know he spent quite a few weeks really contemplating what he was doing and where he was headed, and was an apprenticeship and the future of that something that he was considering. And he came to the conclusion that that was no. He just could not see himself doing this years down the track. So he knew that an apprenticeship was a definite no for him. So this was the question, well, what am I going to do? And so then he started coming back round and looking at university. And he has always had some level of interest in electrical engineering. And so that was what we started to explore further then. I can't remember exactly when that occurred, but it was definitely months, several months before he needed to submit his application form. So I just want to keep in mind here that back at 15, he'd made the decision that he was done with upper level maths. I can't remember exactly what he completed, but it was definitely a good portion of Algebra 1 and some geometry. But he was done with maths, remember? So once he made the decision that, yep, I'm going to apply for university, I then spent a frantic few weeks, months, chatting to as many homeschoolers as I could, ringing universities, finding out what he needed, letting them know what he'd already had, and just trying to seek out the best route for us to take with this, and ensuring that if he had a certificate, he was in the middle of doing a diploma, were those things actually going to be enough for him to apply for the following year's intake, or was he going to need to do something else to get in? Let's be honest here, this part has probably been the most anxiety-ridden, stressful experience of my home educating parenting journey, making sure that we'd done enough that he could actually apply to university. That was a bit scary and a bit tense, I've got to be honest. So once I'd done my research and I'd found out that his Cert 3 and his diploma gave him a rank that was good enough to apply to at least 2 of our local universities for the course that he wanted. He only wanted to attend close by, so we didn't really look further afield. And just in case you aren't aware, a rank is what the universities use. So a standard student at school will get what's called an ATAR at the end of their Year 12 year, and that ATAR score is then converted into a rank that each university uses, and they will place a rank on particular degree. So you need to look at the degree you're looking at, figure out the rank that you want, and work back from there. How do I obtain that rank is what you're looking for. And his diploma, thankfully, was more than enough for the particular degree that he was looking to apply for. The issue that we did feel that we had in the beginning was prerequisites. When applying for a degree, you have to prove that you've covered a certain level of English, and for some degrees also a certain level of maths. We already knew that his diploma would give him the English prerequisite, but what about the maths? He didn't have that, and we both knew that. So this was a bit about, oh, we're freaking out a little bit. What on earth are we going to do? Does he need to do a bridging course? Do we need to look into some Open University maths subjects? Would they be counted as enough of a prerequisite? None of that we knew, and I really couldn't get an answer out of anyone, because every time I spoke to the university, they would offer, just pay us the $5,000 or whatever that amount is and do one of our bridging courses that will get you into the degree you want. Granted, a bridging course is 12 months. And of course, if that was necessary, then I'm sure he would have gone on to do that. So after many more weeks of lots and lots of phone calls and talking to a lot of different people, I found one university that said to me, he doesn't need those prerequisites. All we look at is the rank. That's all we need to know. At first, I didn't believe that. And this is where it's so vitally important that you do your research, and plenty of it. Because I asked a lot of homeschoolers that have walked this path before me, and they all said that can't possibly be true. He's doing an engineering degree. He needs those maths prerequisites. I phoned this university on 3 separate occasions. I spoke to 3 different people, and they all told me the exact same thing. He doesn't need it. That yes, entering this degree, there is a level of assumed knowledge. But what they will do at the beginning of the degree is they will test each of the students, and some of them may need to go off and do an extra math subject to bring them up to speed as to where they need to be. I tried to get this in writing via email. No one would respond to me. So I just had to have a bit of faith that what they were telling me was accurate. And off we went on our merry way. In the meantime though, just to cover some of our fears, as you can see, there's still that anxiety and quite a bit of fear going on. We decided that he would enroll in a math course that's put out by a university, but it's not university level. So it's just upper high school math. So he's been working his way slowly through that, finding that relatively okay for him. And he also enrolled in an Open University subject for academic writing. He's done really, really well at that. We're both very pleasantly surprised at the results that he's getting, and it's been a wonderful boost for his confidence, because he is submitting assignments and he's getting distinctions at the university level. So that's been a really great thing, and I'm thankful that I chose to do that. The time, effort, and the dollars involved have been well worth it, in my opinion. And yes, he's still been working 50 odd hours a week whilst doing that at the same time. So he's been a busy little boy. But when you want something, you just set ahead and you do it. And he's risen to the occasion every single time, and I'm so proud of that. Okay, so the next step of the process was to set him up with a Tertiary Admissions Centre account and jump on and basically apply. So to do this, you need a bit of information with you. You need to have any accredited courses that the child has done. You'll need to have all the codes for those courses. We also needed the student number from each of the colleges that he had attended. So we had to make some phone calls because we didn't have those on hand. So just to give you a heads up with that. And so you jump on, plug in all of your information, all of your schooling information, higher level learning, further education information, and then you select the courses and the universities that you're actually wanting to apply for. And you can put those in order of preference. This process cost us about $75, I think. I can't remember exactly. It's not over the top expensive, but there is one catch. You can make a couple of changes, but they don't let you make continual changes without a fee. So just keep that in mind. And then all you need to do is wait, and wait, and wait, and wait. The particular course that he was applying to, and I'm not sure if it's standard for all universities, we weren't supposed to hear back until mid-January. So again, it's been a big weight on my shoulders having that, because what was he going to do if he didn't get in? Was it too late to find something else to do at that point in time? We talked about adding in other options, other preferences, but he just really wasn't keen on doing anything else other than this particular degree. And so we waited for them to tell us, you're good enough. And that's why you can imagine my complete and utter surprise when he got a text message letting him know he needed to check his emails because you've been offered a place in your first preference university degree. So remember back at the beginning of the video, that was my raw emotion. I videoed that within about half an hour of reading that. Once I had calmed down enough, I could actually speak to the camera because I just wanted to capture that moment because it's a huge moment in time. And the most uncanny thing about all of this is that text arrived smack bang in the middle of the time when every other Australian senior student are sitting their ATAR exams. So every other Australian student that's been studying hard and stressing hard and having goodness knows how many breakdowns and mental health days over worrying about these ATAR exams and will the exams produce them a good enough result to get the rank that's good enough to potentially get into the degree they want. There's such a level of stress and build up around those last few weeks of grade 12 here in Australia. And I know that it's the same, in many parts of the world. So we're not unique in that. In that moment, my son and I looked at each other and basically at the same time, we just said, we did it. We did this and we still got an amazing, stress-free childhood to boot. We knew then that every decision we'd made had been the right decision and that no one needs to be spending their upper high school years drowning in that amount of work, stress, anxiety and whatever else our teenagers are putting themselves through to get these ranks for their university degrees. And that in fact, senior high school is a complete and utter waste of time for the vast majority of teenagers. It's an absolute farce. And when the kids of the world wake up to this, goodness me. And so that's our story of how we got our first university offer. Look, I will do my best to update you with how things progress, especially next year being his first year and how that all goes. But that's it. That's the story of getting to university. I hope that's helped some of you in some way, even if it's given you nothing more than help to allay some of those fears. As long as you're proactive, as long as you're talking to your child, as long as you're exploring all avenues and not just leaving things up to chance or leaving things up to the last minute, it will all work out. It will be okay. I promise you it will be okay. Anyway, I have to say, if you've made it this far, thanks so much for sticking around. And if you are still here and you haven't yet subscribed, why not? Pop on down right now and hit that red little subscribe button because it truly does help my channel and help get out to other homeschoolers just like you the information that I share here. So please hit that subscribe button, and while you're there, just hit the little thumbs up as well. Thanks again for being here. Till next time. Bye for now.